live. Good afternoon, beautiful people. This is your host, Matthew from the Day and Night Podcast, episode number 103. We got another good one for y'all today. So hopefully everybody's doing okay, living in this aftermath. And the new America is what some people is calling it. But hopefully everybody's doing good. They had a good week, having a good weekend so far. And yeah, so like I said, we got a good one for you. I'm gonna kick it to Mark in San Antonio, the co-host.
Well, hello everybody. Well, happy Saturday. It's a beautiful evening or afternoon down here in San Antonio. Beautiful weather. It's actually cooler now, so it's like a fall day. So it's a good day. Just got off of work, so I had to rush over here, get ready. So thank you everybody for joining, like, subscribe, leave a comment. Just staying tuned, and we appreciate you guys that do watch and follow, even though if y'all don't comment, I appreciate you guys for following us and watching us. But on that note, keep it short and simple. Looking forward to today's topic, and as always, I'm gonna let Matt kick it off, and then I'm gonna go ahead and chime in once he get done with his intro.
All right, all right. All right, beautiful people. So I'm just gonna get straight to it. So today's topic is um, less ego, more soul. So hopefully that resonates with everybody, or at least some people. Some people may call it spirit, whatever terminology you want to put on it, be welcome to do so. But just based off of everything that's been going on or transpiring in the world in these last couple of days and years even, like always, I'll be thinking, and I'm reading this book. It's called Manifesting Alignment. And it's a really good book. And it talks about the ego and self. Basically, the self is the ego. But it brought a different perspective. And I'm looking at things a little bit different. I always knew, the ego was more so, if you want to put it like the devil and God, spirit is God, the ego is the devil, if you want a terminology like that. So basically, the ego is who we are. I'll call it 3D. That's basically what drives us. It's emotional. And in my opinion, that's what most people operate in, is their ego. And there's not a happy balance. I'm not going to just say people, myself included. A lot of times in my life, I was operating more in ego, more so than in soul or spirit, or even just being balanced. So it's not good to be one more than the other, because as you know, anything unbalanced is just going to lead to destruction in a sense. So basically, more soul, less ego. It speaks to the profound shift from self-centeredness to a little deeper or life deeper connection of authenticity, humility, embracing more soul. And it means basically prioritizing values like empathy, compassion, and having a sense of purpose that goes beyond personal gains. When we reduce the influence of our ego, we let go of the need of constant validation, control of or competition. We become more open to learning. We're more resilient and more capable of seeing beauty in other things, other people, and in life itself. So for me, it's just a reminder to choose presence over preference, connection over competition, and purpose over personal pride. In a world that we live in is focused more on separation, it's more focused on appearance, it's more focused on success, it's more focused on individual achievement, and it's just basically leaving the soul out. And I'm going to get Mark's perspective on it, and then I'm going to give my perspective as far as this whole election and how I believe so many people are caught up in their ego that is blinding a lot of us, and that's on both sides.
Yeah, so So yeah, the ego, the way you broke it down, yeah, that terminology with the spirit and the devil is the ego. So I'm definitely work in progress when I say that, because I do live in my ego a lot. Just for me sitting back and observing, and then hearing it from other people. I had to come to that realization that it's easy to get caught up in your ego. Like you would say, it's 3D, is the way you see it, where a lot of people personal satisfaction, validation from someone on approval, status quo, or where you at in life. So we it's easy not to try to justify it, but like I said, it's easy to get caught up in that when that's all you focus on. And that's something that I've been doing where I focus on my ego a lot. And I feel like that's something I've been trying to work on. A perfect example the other day when I was training my client, she know who she is, and we got into a little disagreement. And instead of letting me let my ego aside and just apologizing for going off on her and telling her to do something a certain way, I wanted to continue and make it seem like I know what I'm doing because I'm a trainer and I've been doing this for years and I know more than you, instead of just letting my ego aside and saying, okay, you have a point there on what you're doing. You got to give it time. You got to progress and let yourself grow on what it is you're trying to accomplish. So that was where my ego did get in the way. And it's a little pride, you want to feel like when you at a certain level of experience, you always feel like you're going to know more than the other person, even though the other person might have a good point, but the ego won't allow you to say, you know what, I digress. You have a good point. I get it. But my ego was not letting me. And I was just combative with her and kept going back and forth, trying to make my point valid and her point irrelevant. And then she pretty much said that in so many words that, you just got to put your pride aside, what she said. But basically, it's the same ego, pride. And that's something that, I feel like a lot of people don't want to let go because they feel like I just said with myself, I felt like I knew more because that was something I was doing for years and I had the experience instead of just allowing myself to sit back and say, you know what, your point is valid. So it's something I think you got to work on. It's self-evaluation, and you said it perfectly. You've got to have empathy and compassion and realize it's not always about you and it's other people that's involved, and you got to take other people in consideration and what they have to say or what they're doing, and give it the respect. Even if you don't agree with it, you feel like you know more. So that's just one example that, where for myself, I'm speaking on where my ego got in the way. But I'm gonna speak on other people that, that I know where they pretty much the same way. They just refuse to let their ego aside, and it's a pride thing. So I'm gonna let you go, Matt, and then I'm gonna come back with one with a coworker of mine's, colleague, whatever you want to call it, that lives in the ego a lot.
Now, you said something that was really, really true. I keep doing it. I keep flipping myself over. It's really, really true. And it's something so basically our ego is who we are as humans. That's basically the human experience.
Mm.
And I think it's a challenge if a person don't educate themselves as far as truly what the ego is, because it's really complex. Like I can really dive deep into it, but I'm not going to do that. It's like so much that goes into the ego or self. When you
Mm-hmm.
really sit back and think about it, um, if someone truly operated balanced, it's just my opinion. I think that person would be ostracized. I think they won't be welcomed a lot in certain places they go. They will be deemed weird because it's just not how the majority of us function. We all function in our ego. That's what the human experience is the ego. So, like you said, you have to do some serious self-reflection and wanting to, because I think you have to want to be balanced. And just because, especially here in the United States, this is one of the most egotistical countries in the whole planet. So if you're not operating your ego, you can get left behind, you can get stepped on, you get overlooked. And that's the big challenge is, a person have to ask themselves, am I willing to accept not being recognized and accepted because I'm not operating like everybody else? Because the first thing that people throw at you is, oh, you're not human. I've been told that sometimes. Something wrong with you. You're not human.
Yeah.
And it offended me, but it didn't offend me. But just for the simple fact that because that's just who we are,
right.
Like I said, it takes a lot. This is how I view the whole election thing. Now, I'm not gonna lie. I was in my feelings. I was feeling a certain type of way. There was a little, I would say maybe a day of a little fear, just because I know he wants to do away with certain things for the military or veterans, that is. So not in a sense of, oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to do, but just having that thought in the back of my mind is like, damn, I'm gonna have to go out here and do other things to survive because I don't know if this dude is going to really do what he says he's going to do. So I actually listened to Stephen A. Smith. He was on A View, and he had a perfect perspective. And I was watching my man 19 Keys. He had a perfect perspective. And a lot of the things that I thought about and I was telling other people, they both said the same exact thing. So that kind of brought me back down and I kind of got out of that fear. And this is how I see it. The election for me was based off of ego. I think Trump, like I said last time, the dude is a master at using marketing. That's one thing. If he don't know how to do, or that he does know how to do, excellent, is know how to use people. He know how to address and not address, but attract certain people, and he know how to target the right people. And I believe that's why he won. And something Stephen A. said that brought my attention back, in alignment, is he said, because the lady asked, well, why do you think so many Hispanics, because I think he said like half the freaking population of Hispanics voted for Trump. And he said, you got to think about it. The Hispanic community has many different, how did he say it? Many different types of Hispanics and Latinos. So every one of the Hispanics or Latinos, they don't view each other as the same. So if one, like Mexicans, I think, don't like Puerto Ricans, or Puerto Ricans think they're better than Mexicans. Haitians think they're better than what's the other one? Dominicans. So if they're talking about, or Trump talking about putting a deportation and stuff in place because these certain type of Hispanics think they're a higher class, oh yeah, get them up out of here. Then that means it's more money for us. That's more for us, to take control of, or whatever the case is. And I think we're looking at it from that aspect. And the analogy that he gave, he said, if you're standing in line at a baseball game and you're all the way up at the front, and this one dude just walk up and cut in line, and you let him go, or you just gonna let that person cut in line, or you gonna make them get back. I thought that was a perfect analogy. And he said that's basically how it is within the Hispanic community. And that's probably why so many of them voted for Trump, because he's hoping that he will deport a certain type of, class of Hispanics or Latinos. And then Keys was saying that Kamala didn't address or didn't target a certain audience. So basically what I'm getting to, everybody have an ego. Everybody have a belief of who they are and what they want to be. And Trump, in my opinion, targeted each one of those. So because people are in their ego and it's all about them, they can care less the stuff that he's saying. They don't care what he did. The only thing they focus on or hearing is he's going to help in this area. He's going to bring down the high prices of groceries. He's going to bring down the high prices of gas. So whatever the case is, he may have reached some particular audience to where they were so in their ego that they would have blinders to everything else. And as the natural person can see it, like, dude, y'all do not see what this guy is doing and what he's about. They don't care anything about that. When a person is 100% ego and no soul, all that other stuff goes out the window. So in my belief, that's what a lot of the main reason why so many people voted for Trump, because most people was voting out of ego more than out of soul, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So I guess I'm gonna go with you on the same be parallel to what you're saying, just in a different kind of way. It's gonna sound similar to what you're saying, where I do agree that with the president thing, that he lives out of ego. Definitely, we all know that, and I think he targeted his audience based off of his ego. So in other words, he's mirroring himself with the voters. So the voters is so much arrogant like him and living in the ego and just the things he say. And I'm gonna go back to one thing he did in the debate. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because, like I said, he's an entertainer to me. And I was telling my friend the other day, I said, this dude is funny to me because he's probably saying to himself, man, this America, and people ain't gonna like what I'm about to say, but I'm saying devil's advocate, paraphrasing what he might have said in so many words. Man, I'm gonna win this election because these damn people in America is just idiots. They'll do anything I say. They're gonna believe anything I do because they're so arrogant and so egotistical. They're gonna believe everything and they're gonna go along with what I say. And the thing about the cats and dogs is the reason why it, to me, is a perfect example. Is when he was there and he was saying, "Yeah, they eat cats and dogs." Now, for him to say that and say it so adamantly, like he really meant it, and he believed that, and the people was really running around acting like, "Oh my God, these immigrants is over here eating and killing dogs and cats," because they're in their ego thinking that these immigrants is no good because that's their image of immigrants, and that's the same image that Trump has. So the point I'm making to out of all this is he's mirroring their ego of America, and their ego is the same as his, and that's why, in my own opinion, he won the election. Is because someone like you said, he targeted the right audience, which is these egotistical people that's arrogant and full of themselves and believe in their own true beliefs on certain things, and that Trump is the damn spokesperson for it. And he's the same way. He's very into his himself. He's very egotistical, and he's a manipulator, and he know how to talk and get people to buy in what he's saying, even if it's ridiculous. So to me, that's kind of not the whole definition of what you're saying for arrogance, but I believe that's part of it. It's like in a umbrella of arrogance or ego. Is because some people ego believe stupid things like that and think that people are a certain way because that's their perception of them, and then they refuse to think that they any other way but that way. And that's, to me, is the ego you have about the way you think of someone or someone's culture. And you may not even know enough about them, but just your perception, what you believe, and that's your ego saying, "I refuse to believe they good people." Like it was reports that all those Venezuelans that came and was murdering people and kidnapping people, and everybody believes now that Venezuelans is gangsters. And we have a bunch of immigrants that work at my job, and there's a bunch of them from Venezuela, and it ain't nothing the way they portraying it on the news. So of course that's a minute some of people. But my point is, if you was to meet some of them, you would see that what they put in the news is not the same. So that's, to me, an ego they put out there for propaganda. And that's part of the ego that I think is the worst, is where they make people believe and feel a certain way about certain cultures. So I know that's kind of off subject, but
No,
to me,
that was good. Now, this is the other thing. I always try to find a positive out of everything. And I believe I said this last week. I don't remember if I did or not. But I was basically saying, like, Trump is a reflection, like you just said, reflection of the United States. And I look at it two different ways. I look at it in a positive way, in the sense of I always say there's warning comes before destruction. This is not supposed, this is the age of Aquarius. So this is all about truth. So everything is going to be revealed. I believe we have to go through this time period because many of us was living in unrealistic terms. And now we're at a point to where we have to address it. And sometimes if something is right there in front of you, and for whatever reason, like I said, if you're in your ego and you can't see it, it's going to keep affecting you. And you're gonna basically go down the road of danger because you can't see it because you're so stuck on yourself and what you want. So sometimes the only way to get your attention is it have to be loud, it have to be obnoxious, and it have to be so glaring that you can't look away from it. You have no choice but to address it. And I believe that's the point that we're at. And I believe we're at that point to now everyone has to start looking within themselves and saying, okay, how did we get to this point? Because, I've been watching different shows and a lot of people are saying, well, how did Trump win? And, just like I was saying, and people discussing the reasons why. My firm belief is that we're at that crossroad. We're either going to learn from this, we're going to come together, or we're going to crash and burn. And that's it. We're the last so-called standing Babylon. And Babylon has to fall. Whether if you read scriptures or if you believe in universe, it has to come down. And we can't keep fooling ourselves, hoping and praying, that this is not going to happen. It's going to happen. And the one thing I said is when your foundation, United States was built on a bad foundation. It was built on hate. It was built on greed. It was built on lust. It was built on ego. When you have a foundation like that, it's never going to stand the way you want it to stand because the foundation is corrupt. It's not strong. So in order to make a strong foundation, guess what happened? You have to tear it apart and rebuild it. And we have to go through this time period. Destruction is going to come. A lot of craziness. I don't know if you see it on the news and TikTok, with these people acting out in pockets across the United States, disrespecting blacks and so forth. It's going to get worse before it get better. But I believe we have to go to it for our community in itself. We have to look at ourselves. Okay, are we going to stand strong? Are we going to come together as a people and stop praying and hoping that Jesus or whoever is going to save us and he's going to make everything perfect? No, we have to do it within ourselves. And the same thing with the Caucasian community. They have to look within themselves. You got some that are good, you got some that are bad. Unfortunately, it's more bad than it is good. They have to come together as a community and say, okay, we're in a path of destruction. We're going to have to look within ourselves, get out of ego and more in soul and spirit. Because the more we focus on that ego, the more and more we're going to crash and burn. And it's going to really burn. And it's going to burn bad. So I think we're at that point to whereas we have to go through this. We have to address it. And we're at that point. Which one are you going to choose? Which one are you going to be more balanced with? I mean, are you going to be more balanced? You're going to be out of balance. Which one? You're going to be more out of balance in spirit or more out of balance in ego? In my opinion, we're at that point. That's what I see from this. So I see that as a good thing in a sense of now it's in front of us. What are we going to do?
Yeah, well, with that being said, yeah, not thinking negatively, but I think as well, it's going to be a lot of hardship these next few years. We're going to have to go through it, endure it, go through the hardship of it until we do come to some kind of recollection as far as are we going to unite as a country or are we going to stay divided? Because the ego, to me, in my lens, the way I'm seeing it, and I think you put it perfect on which way you're going to sway because everybody's ego is going to be tested because, like you said, there's patches of arrogant white folks that's running around because Trump's president, where they coming across and we back now. We going to start running things and and we're going to just be disrespectful to other races, and other races going to be like, I don't care who the president, you're not going to disrespect me. So now ego is going to be tested, because who's going to be the one to let up and be able to turn the other cheek, so to speak, and try to look on more the spiritual side, or the side of understanding, of trying to love each other. So it's going to be challenging, and I'm going to sit here and say my ego will be tested too. Luckily I ain't getting nothing crazy. I get a lot of dirty looks, those smirks here and there, though, sly comments, low key, that I hear from certain, white folks when I'm out in the store, or when I was at the gym the other day, but nothing directly. They make conversations amongst each other. But I think that's a good test of your ego too, because if you get too irritated by it, which they trying to bait you anyway to say something, and then there you go. Now you into an altercation. So that I had to test myself, or calm myself, and just let it go, because my ego is being tested. Now I'm gonna tell y'all a little story, right? So check this out. So last week I was with a friend, a potential client, and we sitting down talking. This is crazy, dude. So I had on my shirt. Actually, it's right here. I had on this tank top right here. Right? You see what it says, Beast. Okay.
Yeah.
Now I wasn't even thinking about it when I was wearing it. So we talking. Now she's a Hispanic lady, but she looks white. So we sitting there talking, laughing, and just joking about training. This elderly lady walks up. She looked like she's about 80. She go, "Excuse me, what jungle did you come from?" I was like,
Wow.
I was about to go off. I laughed, because I'm sitting there like, this lady had the audacity to come up and ask me this. And I was about to go off on it. I just something said, you know what? Just calm down. And her daughter had to be about our age. Mom, I'm so sorry. Please forgive her. I can't take her nowhere. She go, no, but wait. His shirt says beast. So I want to know what jungle he came from, because he's a beast. So I started laughing. My friends started laughing. We had a good laugh. We all joked. Just like, I was like, oh, but I was going to say I'm from Wakanda just to be joking and shit.
Yeah.
But my ego was tested right there, because the first reaction for a brother to be like, go off and just call her a racist and you disrespectful, and it could have went so sideways. But my ego had to be put in check, and luckily that the older lady had realized that she said some crap she shouldn't have said the way she said it, which I still think she was on a slide trying to be indirectly a smartass, but she knew that I had the shirt, so that gave her the green light to be wise ass about it. But we laughed it off. I just let it go. And my lady friend like, oh my God, I thought you was gonna go off on her. I was like, nah, I had to think about what she said, looked at my shirt and realized beast. So I was like, okay, so we just let it go. So to me, that's an example of, like I was saying a minute ago, about our ego is going to be tested,
Mhm.
and we're going to be incited and try to be baited from different cultures, some Hispanics too, because like you said, a lot of Hispanics voted for Trump, but they've been walking
Mhm.
around for some reason with their chest all out. So it's going to be interesting, in my opinion, these next few years on how everything is going to be, as far as, like you said, these egos, because everybody's ego is going to go to another level, in my opinion.
Yeah. I'm telling you, bro, we at the crossroads. A lot of Christians out there, they believe in the rapture, the tribulation period. I'm telling you, we are in the time of Aquarius, and we
Mm-hmm.
are in that true phase or time period.
Right.
And I highly 100% believe we are at the crossroads. We're either going to go forward and live balanced, or we're going to go the other way, and everybody's going to be in their ego, because that's what I'm about to get into now, is what supports ego. So I always ask myself, how is it created? It's just not something you just put on. It's built up from the time that we were little kids, from things that we see, the environment that we live in, and just naturally who we are and how we operate as and function as a human being. And one of the number one things that supports or helps support our ego is attachments. Everybody have attachments. I have attachments. Everybody. It's nothing it's something we can't get away from. It's conscious, subconscious, and unconscious. And I was this one movie I was watching. It was the Escape Room. I think it was the second one. I don't know if you've seen the first one, but the girl that was in the first one was in the second one. She was basically seeing a psychiatrist trying to get over the trauma that she experienced, from what happened in the first one. And she kept saying that people was after her and people was trying to lock her up and stuff. And the doctor looked at her and she was like, "You think I'm crazy, don't you?" She said, "No, I don't think you're crazy." But she said, "My dear, whatever you create in your mind, you're going to manifest into reality. And that's what you're going to see. So whatever you keep telling yourself is real, it will appear as real." And we talked about this before. That's why some people can see something one way and you see it another way that's totally different. And you're looking at that person like, "You can't see what I'm saying." So that's the number one example or proof that we, trying to not to go back to that, but we create our own reality. So what comes with that are attachments. And what attachments do? There's ideas and concepts and labels that we cling to in order to defend, just like you said, in order to defend our ego. Now, that was a very interesting moment because you could have went off on a lady, but you sat back, you reevaluated, you responded more than you did reacted. So that's good. That shows growth. And that's how we're supposed to be. But right now, everybody is acting out of their ego. And why is that? It comes with those attachments. The things that we believe, the ideas and concepts that we have, with the lady trying to address or trying to connect you to an animal, because they used to say we was animals and apes and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah.
So that's an attachment that she had. That's something or concept or idea that she grew up with or taught or learned or however she, got it. But that's stuff that we actually walk around with on a daily basis and we don't realize it. Now, like I said, I was reading this book. This is really interesting. So this is what it says. We have two types of attachments. We got standard attachments that everybody knows they have. Then we have the less obvious attachments, which is, I'm going to do the first one, the standard attachment. So that's possessions, people and relationships, social status, financial status, and ideology. We all have some form of attachment, if not one, all of these. And then the less obvious attachments are habits of thinking, superior complex, okay? Inferior complex, that somebody's saying, "Oh, I'm not good enough," or "I'm never going to amount to anything," and then the fear of change. So with those attachments, they support our ego or our self that help create who we are and how we function. Now, it's like a little exercise that you have to do. Now, it says, this is one way of knowing what you attach to. So for each one of those that I read out, you would ask this question: would I be okay if I did not have this possession? Would I be okay if I didn't have people in relationship? Would I be okay if I did not have financial status? Would I be okay if I didn't have ideology? And if you find yourself, if you're honest and you write out how you actually feel, then that's an attachment. And those attachments help support our ego self. And again, that's why I feel as though so many people are acting out, because they have these attachments and it's keeping them in their ego, not allowing them to be more so in their soul or spirit. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm just curious what your mindset is from that.
No, I mean, I think that's perfectly put. It makes sense, like you said. I mean, because I call them labels, but yeah, you have to be able to categorize it to see what kind of way you stand at on certain egos. Because some people, in my opinion, I don't want to say strive, but kind of act more on one more than the other. If that even makes sense. Because I had another situation where my phone was acting up. Okay, this last weekend, and I'm texting everybody, and I mean nobody responded. And I'm like, what the hell? Oh, so nobody want to respond to me, huh? So everybody want to try to ignore me. Okay, bet. So I ain't gonna say nothing to nobody. So I had issues with a certain couple of people where I felt like they was ignoring me purposely. And then come Monday, my phone, for whatever reason, didn't work. And all the texts came in from over the weekend with everybody that I reached out to, actually literally did reach out to me. Remember, I was telling you, oh, I thought you was ignoring me because normally we talk about the game and I ain't hear nothing from them all day. So I had attitude with you. So that was me living my ego on attachment part as far as, oh, people want to ignore me. So I felt like, it was something that I must have did or nobody just don't want to deal with me because I felt like I was being ignored purposely. So the point I'm making out of all the ones you just read off, I agree with that 100%. I tend to act more on my ego on that one in particular, the one about attachment or not attachment, the one you say as far as if you feel like you're being ignored
Yeah.
or something like that. That's when I myself kind of act out more. I noticed over the last few months, I've been looking back and seeing how I move. That's the one I feel like I'm more so in. So I agree with that. And I think we all should, as people, start realizing and looking and do that test, you say, a quiz,
Mhm.
and test ourselves and see which one do we really operate out the
Right.
most. Because I feel like we all do. Maybe some of all of them as a collective, but I feel like some of us act out one more so than the
Mhm.
others. So that was my main one because yeah, I was I had an attitude last weekend, boy. I felt like nobody was trying to reach out to me. So
That's crazy because you was texting me during the game, and I text you like right after you said something, and you
right.
didn't respond back. I was like, damn, that's kind of rude, but okay.
Yeah. See, exactly. But I didn't get nothing all day. And I mean, Peaches responded. She reached out. Keisha, Deanna, all my kids, few of my friends, one of my client. I mean, it was crazy. And I just felt like everybody was ignoring me because I didn't know
Yeah.
they received my text. Like you were saying, you got mine,
Yeah.
but I didn't know that you got it or not because I didn't hear from you. So
Mhm.
my ego started to kick in and felt like everybody was ignoring me. So yeah,
You know what
it's
that one
definitely
supports that?
what?
And so you know which one that is? That attachment?
Yeah,
That that's the habits of thinking. To
yeah,
me, that's the biggest one that everybody has. Because the habit of thinking, that's the number one thing, not to get back on Trump, but that's the
yeah,
number one thing that he was using is
yeah,
people attached to how things used to be, and they want to go back to that. And they're thinking, well, blacks are only supposed to be slaves and picking cotton, all that
oh,
nonsense. So they
right,
have that still, their attachment to that. And him getting up there and saying the crazy stuff, it triggered that.
yeah,
And he basically was speaking to their ego, and their ego got all puffed up. And right now, a lot of them are in that ego of habit of thinking. So that's why I'm saying that we're in a spot to where, for me, this is illuminating real big. We have to come less out of or more out of ego and more into spiritual and soul. Now that leads me into this next comment because Christina says more balance, spiritual. I believe we're going to stand strong. Now somebody said to me, "Well, you attacked Christina last week." Christina, I hope you don't think I'm attacking you. You just bring up some comments that sometimes make me have to give you feedback. I hope you see it as feedback and not me like blasting you or anything like that. Now, this is not directed at you. I'm just thinking about a lot of these people that's in fear, and a lot of them claim to be Christians or religious. And I used to I used to be heavily into it. And one thing I did learn when I was going through that experience is that you have two things you can do. You either believe or you don't believe. And to me, people are fearful of this man. If you truly, not you, Christina, I'm just speaking in general, if people truly believe in a God, or whatever they believe in, if you believe in them wholeheartedly 100%, this dude can't touch you. I don't care what he says, he can't touch you because your God is superior. He's not bigger than God. He ain't bigger than the universe. So why are people running around fearful? You know why? Because they're more ego and less spiritual or soulful. Because your soul is not thinking about that. So again, for me, this is getting us to the point. Which one are you? Are you going to continue to be living in your ego, which we have to because it's the human experience? But are you going to be less egotistical and more soulful? Or, like I said, a good balance? But I think that's where we're at right now. It's for me, it's like glaring so much. It's like, damn, people can't see this. We're at that crossroad. We have to make up our mind. And it starts with self first. And it's the other thing I was thinking about is like, these people are acting crazy. I said, man, that's not even in office yet. Now, God forbid, he can pass away. Anything can happen within now in the time that he actually swears in. Is that likely? Probably not. But my point is, why are people fearful? And it's not even that time yet. You still got a month and some change. So why are people so living out of fear more so and out of confidence as far as what you believe in? So I think that's another thing is as a mirror being put up. Are you truly is spiritual, religious that you say you are? Because if you are, I don't care what this man says. And I said this before, and it's not being egotistical or boasting. I'm just telling you my experience. Like I said, I was heavily into Christianity and stuff when I was in the military. When I was deployed, I went over there with arrogance. I said, okay, God, you said you protect me, you love me, you're going to bring me back. And I went over there expecting it, and I came in situations to where I could have lost my life. But I didn't. I came back and I was confident. That's how we're supposed to walk. So if I can go to a combat zone where I'm getting mortars over our heads every day, being back to back deployed and walking in confidence and belief, this one man should not be fearful or putting so much fear in people that they're running around acting crazy or just, whatever they're doing. Now, as far as these people that's acting out on people, that's going to come back. It's going to come back to get them. But anyway, I don't want to get off topic. I want to make this all about Trump. This is supposed to be about the ego and self. But I just think this is a perfect example of people operating in ego. And hopefully people start, doing some self-evaluation and start, working on themselves and saying, look, I need to be more empathetic, sympathetic. I need to embrace people more and find out who they are and not rely on my habit of thinking, that's keeping me in my old ego or keeping me in ego. All right, so I said a lot, Mark. Let me kick it back to you.
You said everything that's pretty much. I concur. I co-sign on that. I feel the same way. So I'm not going to say that much anything differently from what you just said. Just probably to add more to is the ego, like you were saying, is it's at a point right now, crossroads, where we have to really decide. I think, and I said this earlier, we're going to have to challenge ourselves. I'm not going to say it's going to happen overnight. Like the situation that arose with the older lady, that tested me. The cell phone thing was a test of my ego because I let my ego get in the way, and then some people was like, I think Deanna or Keisha, one of them said, "You gonna apologize for accusing me of not reaching out?" And I was like, no, because it was a cause and effect. The phone acted up, so I still was in my ego because I didn't even want to accept the fact that I went overboard, and assumed. So that's what I'm saying. It's going to be a work in progress, but we can't let that be a crutch to say it's work in progress. You got to really make a valid effort and be serious about it and know that that's the only way change is going to really come, in my opinion, is getting out of the ego. And it's, it's not going to be tomorrow. It's going to be a process. That's why I always say STS. We got to stay focused on the process, trust it, and be consistent on working on yourselves. And I feel like we will come through this on top, but it's going to be hell before we get there, because I'm a firm believer, and it's going to be hardship before you get to where you're really trying to get to. So we just need to focus on that and realize our egos gets us in a lot of trouble at times, and that's something that we really need to pay attention to and highlight it, and realize that it needs to be something that needs to be changed, especially if there's no good coming out of it. If nothing good comes out of it, that should be a flag telling you right there that it's something you need to work on. So I mean, that's where I sit with that as far as the ego.
Now, I want to stay here just for a minute.
Yeah.
Because I think, not you, but I don't want the message to come across as that ego. Like I said, ego is what makes us human. That's something we can't get away from. But my focus is more so is like the ingredients as far as what creates the ego and reinforces it, which is the attachments. Those are the things that we have to work on. And like doing an exercise is finding out what your attachments are and getting rid of them or making them less important in our life than what they are. Then I believe that kind of de-escalates the ego in a sense to where it's out of control. Because like I said, the ego is what makes us human. That's the whole human experience is the ego. So we can't get away from that. But we can address the attachments that reinforce the ego. So we can kind of like smooth it over to the point to where you can still be ego, but not in a detriment to where you're just acting out of control. You can't see clearly. You can't think clearly. You don't have empathy and sympathy. So working on those attachments to me would be the best way of kind of reconstructing your ego, if that makes sense. So it's just something else that I was reading that makes sense to me and it kind of illuminated is if we give meaning to a thing or situation, it becomes truth as far as we're concerned. So I don't know if you ever been around somebody or knew somebody, they may have one bad situation or bad thing happen to them. Let's say for about a week. And they come back every day. Oh my God, man, I had another bad day. And then a week passes by and now they're saying, well, I guess that's just me. I guess I'm just bad luck. I guess I'm just meant to have this in my life. That's right there is one of the things that kind of bring the ego down and feed your ego because you're thinking more about self and thinking about the things that affect you. And that's the way of thinking. So that's going to keep you more entrenched in your ego because you're always walking around thinking about, well, damn, this keep happening to me. Why this always happening to me? Opposed to just taking it for something just happened in a moment, just a circumstance. What's the famous saying? It is what it is, and then keep it moving. But don't take that with you every day and then start saying, well, damn. And I've done this before. I used to do that. I used to think, well, damn, I guess I'm just meant to have this happen. When I was doing the DoorDash, I was thinking like that. Well, I guess I'm just meant to be in this situation. And that's negative thinking. And I was more so much of my ego that I wasn't seeing the lesson in it, and what I had to learn from it so I could move on. Same thing like right now with the whole DVS thing. I come to the conclusion, this is a training ground. This is preparing me for my next level and I'm getting better. So I already said I was just going to work there for a year and where I'm supposed to be at my next higher self, I have to be able to be empathetic and sympathetic and less egotistical to where it's me firing back at these people and, getting in my emotion because of based off of what they said. Okay. You got anything or?
Oh, I thought you was about to say something. I didn't know if you was done or not, but No, I mean, I pretty much said what I had to say. I don't want to be kind of redundant saying it over and over again. So I think the message is pretty clear. I think you broke it down to where it's totally understandable. Now it's just a matter of us going out and really acting on it. So, I'm gonna just close on pretty much what you just said. Your ego is something that what makes us human. Definitely identify what the strongest egos is and why is it a weakness, attachment, and figure out how to work on it and better yourself so you will be at your higher better self or who you're trying to become. Because that's definitely what I'm doing. Because I've been really recently realizing things. It's a pattern. So I own it, and I will sit here and be the first to tell you that it can be done, but you just gotta believe it and know that you are making a change. And I think you will work better in your ego. Because like you said, nobody's ever gonna get rid of it 100%. But as far as you identify your attachments, because we all have them. Some more than others, but we all have them. So
Oh man.
that what?
Now that was good. I told you every week you'd be all in it because that's exactly what I was reading. It was talking about like you're on it because you realize that you developed a pattern, and that's the key. Is realizing that you developed a pattern, and that helps supports that ego that you're operating in. Now you can shift it and change it and say, okay, now I got to approach it a different way, and not keep going back to the same things I was doing before. Some people call them vices. So if you don't want to call them attachments, vices, if they resonate with you, then use vices. Everybody got a vice, rather if it's negative or positive. But just remember that reinforces your ego. And we got to be less ego and more spiritual or soulful. So I'm just going to leave y'all with this. I think this was real profound when I read it. And just let it sink in, just let it marinate, meditate on it, do whatever you have to do, but just let this, just let it sit in you for a minute. Okay, so we all grew up and it allowed us to move through the world with a persona that helps us accommodate, navigate, and survive every situation. That's the ego. However, when we get trapped in the habit of being a certain way, when we allow this ego self to remain attached to a known state of being, we restrict ourselves from expanding. Okay, so remember, you are the character. I mean, you are not the character. You have a character. So the ego is your character. That's not who you are. Who you are is that spirit, that loving, sympathetic, empathetic person, and that's who we are because we're spiritual. We're spiritual, energetic beings. We're not the ego. That's just us experiencing this human experience while we're here. So, so just remember, you are not the character, you have character. If you want to move toward a new, more enjoyable way of living, you need to be willing to break free of the mental prison of the ego. So with that, beautiful people, I appreciate y'all, those that's been watching, those that commented, Christina and KJ. Just tune in again next week. Now, I had a guest that was supposed to have been on last year. She reached out. She said she wanted, be a guest on the show. So I sent the email back and said next week. So I'll keep y'all updated. Mark, I'll definitely keep you updated as far as if she's going to be on next week.
All right. Nice.
So with that, beautiful people, remember, your thoughts create your reality, and reality you create. I mean, your thoughts, your belief creates your thoughts. Your thoughts create your belief creates your reality. So with that, y'all be good. We out.